Hello and welcome back to 30 Days to Nirvana, taking you from completely insane to somewhat partially kind of sane in only 30 days. It's day 13, and today's meditation is accepting dukkha as a part of life. Essentially not running away from painful experiences and painful feelings. Dukkha is a word that you may not have heard before. It's sometimes translated as suffering, but that tends to be misunderstood in Western minds. I would interpret the word dukkha as more of a feeling of dissatisfaction, unhappiness. Really, that's a good way to say it. Some little element of unhappiness. It doesn't mean that you're always unhappy or that everything is unhappy. It just means that unhappiness and unpleasantness is a part of life. And if you go through life thinking, like, the positive thinking movement tries to proclaim that everything is always positive, you're going to sort of be repressing all the negative stuff. So we need to accept dukkha. We need to accept that there is some suffering. We need to accept that there is some negative, disappointing, unpleasant parts of life if we're going to live a realistic life, for one thing, and also if we're going to be able to live a happy life. Because when we deny to ourselves that there is an unpleasantness that sometimes arises in life, when we deny to ourselves that there are things that bother us or that cause us to feel unwanted feelings, or tension, anxiety, shame, embarrassment, when we deny this to ourselves, we are ignoring a part of our experience of life. And that becomes an unconscious motivating factor that pushes you in directions that you didn't necessarily want to go. It creates a lot of problems, let's just say it that way. I used to spend my life seeking happiness. And the ironic thing about seeking happiness is that it's very difficult to be happy when you're seeking happiness. Because by seeking happiness, we are running away from unhappiness. We are seeking happiness and avoiding unhappiness. Seeking and avoiding. And this seeking and avoiding behavior is giving rise to a lot of the suffering that we experience in life. I remember one moment where I was sitting on the porch of my house. I was a little bit stressed. I was upset about something, I don't remember what it was, because I felt that it was making me unhappy. And as I sat there on the porch, I realized that in that moment, I was unhappy because I was worrying about unhappiness. Which is kind of ironic. The situation that I was worrying about in that moment wasn't causing me as much unhappiness as my own tendency to be upset about unhappiness in my own life. In that moment, I realized that trying to run away from unhappiness is extremely counterproductive, because trying to run away from unhappiness only causes more unhappiness. So it's kind of a funny paradox. If you want to be happy, you will have a very hard time being happy. If you are afraid of being unhappy, then you are going to be unhappy. So I wrote down in my little book of reminders that I read every morning, the key to happiness is being okay with unhappiness. And there's a lot of truth to that, because if you're not worried about being unhappy, if you're okay in a situation where you are unhappy, if you are unhappy and you're okay with that, suddenly you're kind of happy. It's okay. Everything is cool. I'm unhappy, but it's okay. And the funny thing is that being okay with unhappiness immediately flips you into a state of happiness, which is very strange. But if you're pretending to be okay with unhappiness in order to flip into happiness, it doesn't work. If you say, okay, I'm okay with unhappiness, I'm okay with unhappiness, trying to flip yourself into happiness, you're not, you're just fooling yourself. The trick is to recognize that unhappiness will arise. It will throughout the course of your life. you're not always going to be able to be mindful all the time. Even the happiest person in the world is going to have moments of unhappiness, moments of struggle. But the key is not to judge those moments as like, oh, it's bad. When you realize that you are being upset about unhappiness, then just let go of that judgment, let go of that struggle, that fight against the unhappiness. Just say, okay, it is what it is, and accept it. Go with the flow of it. And if you can develop that kind of equanimity toward unhappiness, if you can develop that kind of acceptance, then nothing can take away your happiness. Even unhappiness can't take away your happiness. It's a pretty crazy thing. And this is what the Buddha was talking about thousands of years ago when he taught his 3 noble truths. The first noble truth is dukkha, suffering. There is suffering. You will suffer. Accept it. It's part of life. By accepting suffering, ironically, we allow ourselves to live a happier life. So here I am sitting in New York. It's December right now. It's very, very cold. I'm not wearing gloves or socks, sitting by a lake. There is pain that comes along with this cold. In the past, I may have allowed myself to be unhappy because of that pain. I might have been upset about it and it's cold. And in the future, I may do that as well. But for now, since we happen to be talking about this right now, and I happen to be practicing this right now, I'm sitting here and I'm cold, but it's okay. And if I happen to be unhappy about that, that's okay too. And if I'm unhappy in the future, that's okay too. So let's practice for a few minutes, sitting and meditating in our meditation positions. And if you haven't been following along with this series, you should check out the posture. I'm gonna link to it in one of these corners of the screen. So sit with me in the meditation posture of your choice. Focus on the breathing. Letting the air flow in and out and just observing it. And just meditating, not worrying about the concepts of suffering and dukkha, just meditating and allowing this understanding to sink in as we meditate. Not actively thinking about it, just focusing on your breathing as usual, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice meditation. Now, as we begin to come back into this world that surrounds us and move about the rest of our days, bring the awareness of the breathing with you as long as you can. And whenever you notice yourself stressing out about something, think to yourself, am I worried about being unhappy? Am I worried about this thing bringing me unhappiness? And if you notice that, just smile and say, oh, okay, that's silly. I'm causing myself unhappiness right now because I'm worried about being unhappy in the future. And then in that moment, you can just drop it, and just let it be, and smile and come back to the breathing. Join us tomorrow as we meditate on letting go of what you want and what you fear. Letting go of fear and desire. In today's meditation, we let go of our craving for happiness and our fear of unhappiness. And as we practice this, we may find that fear and desire are the two drivers of our anxiety. When we are afraid of something, of course we're anxious to avoid it. But often in the Western world we glorify desire. We think of it as a good thing. But at a certain point, that desire is actually driving your anxiety just as much as your fear. You're afraid of not achieving your object of your desire. So make sure to join us tomorrow for that meditation. It's very, very important to work with the fears and the desires. Without that, we can try to meditate, we can try to force ourselves to concentrate, but our fears and our desires will constantly be dragging our minds away and will stop us from being able to concentrate when we want to, and will stop us from being able to really appreciate and enjoy the present moment of life. So if you want to join us tomorrow, click the subscribe button below this video and click like if you like this video, and leave a comment in the comment section below if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you want to say thank you for the meditation, or if you just want to send me some hate mail. I really appreciate all comments. Thank you very much for joining me in this meditation today, and I hope to see you soon in the next meditation. Namaste. May you be well.